I know I recently did a Q&A, but you guys like the Q&As quite a lot. I enjoy doing the Q&As. In the last Q&A, I asked for 200 likes and you guys killed it in less than 24 hours. So let's see if we can get 300 this time around. We got 350 in last video, but I want to keep pushing our limits. You know what? I don't even need to ask for that. You guys got it under control. I believe in you. 300 likes. Let's do it. All right, let's jump into the questions. If you could choose any Mortal Kombat character or another Mortal Kombat character to replace Raiden or Sub-Zero's slot, who would it be? Well, for me personally, it would be Johnny Cage. I was kind of disappointed to not see Johnny Cage in this game because I thought Johnny Cage would be a shoo-in. He's a perfect character to be used as a guest character in any other game, but specifically in Injustice because his character just suits the world very well. He's a comedic character and he could take advantage of that quite well in Injustice as well. For example, in Mortal Kombat, the character is an actor, and if you put him in Injustice 2, he could have a lot of comedic lines about that. For example, when he runs into Superman, he could say, "Do I recognize you?" And then in the end, he could end up saying, "Oh, that's right, I played you in a movie." Stuff like that he would be able to say in this world of comic book characters. And I feel like it's a tiny bit of a missed opportunity that we didn't get him in Injustice 2. But there is always going to be another Injustice game around the corner, so here's hoping they do get to use that Johnny Cage interaction eventually. Do you think NetherRealm should add DC characters into MK11 since they added MK characters into Injustice 2? If they were, I would want Deathstroke as he didn't make the cut in Injustice 2. I'm not sure if Deathstroke suits the Mortal Kombat world. He's definitely not a horrible pick, but I feel like there's probably better characters you can go with. For example, I think the Joker could work quite well. He's also a very iconic character and very easy to market, so not only does he just kind of fit in the world of Mortal Kombat, but he's also a character that would appeal to them from a marketing standpoint. The thing is, we do have the multiverse in DC, so you could come up with a more hardcore, sadistic, I'm not pronouncing that word correctly, I know I'm not, but don't worry about it. Basically a more evil version of any character, and you can basically have them look like a Mortal Kombat character. You could do a version of Batman which is much more hardcore, survivalistic, one that it's much more plausible to see do a fatality. And for anyone who's questioning that and going, "No, Batman would never work in a Mortal Kombat game," there's literally Nazi versions of DC characters because the multiverse exists. So really, they could make any character work, but I think they should probably go with the traditional version or a slightly more traditional version of whatever character they use. And I feel like if we're going for a traditional version of any of these characters, Joker is probably the best pick. If you could bring back any character from Injustice Gods Among Us, who would it be? This is a tough pick because I want to say Batgirl, but I also don't want to say Batgirl. I kind of want to say Martian Manhunter. You know what? I'm going to go with Batgirl. For me, it's pretty close between the two, but I think Batgirl is probably a superior pick because Batgirl was a ton of fun to play, and I didn't get the chance to spend a lot of time with her, and I would love to see what they did with the gear system on that character. If you could add any Batman villain to Injustice 3 that did not appear in Injustice 1 or Injustice 2, who would it be and why? So when I answer this, keep in mind that pretty much all of the mainstream Batman villains have been used in an Injustice game. Scarecrow, Bane, Joker, Harley Quinn. Characters like Hush, I suppose, haven't been used, but I wouldn't pick Hush. For me personally, who I would pick would be Manbat, because I think his moveset would be very interesting. I want to see him be like a rushdown mix-up character that would be kind of crazy. That's a character I'd like to see them explore. Why do you think Huntress was originally removed from the roster? I don't know. It's impossible to tell what NetherRealm was thinking because we're not NetherRealm and we have no idea what their internal conversations are like, but I would imagine the main reason is probably because she didn't fit into the story the same way that they wanted other characters to fit into the story. Usually when you plan out a roster, you have to keep in mind how are they going to be used in the story. Obviously, they wanted to use the Huntress character, and there could be many reasons why they didn't end up going with her, but I think the most likely reason is probably just because they couldn't fit her into any type of narrative. What Mortal Kombat characters do you want to see in Injustice 3? I mean, I sort of talked about this a little bit earlier, but if I had to pick like all of the DLC Mortal Kombat characters, I'm going to assume there will probably be 3 in Injustice 3, because we had 1 in Injustice 1, we had 2 in Injustice 2. They've confirmed that there's not going to be another Mortal Kombat character, so I'm going to assume that Injustice 3 will have 3 Mortal Kombat characters. I'm going to go with Johnny Cage, Reptile, and Goro. I think Goro is a good pick because he's very iconic to the series. I think Reptile is a good pick for similar reasons. If I wasn't going to go with Reptile, I'd probably go with a character like Sector. Maybe? I'd have to put a lot more thought into that if I'm being entirely honest. All right, Nightmares, what's going on? Why do we have so many questions? All right, we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna ignore this top one because I don't necessarily understand the question. If Pennywise was a DLC character in MK11, which one of the 3 following options do you think they would go with? The 2017 version, the 1999 version, or do you think it would just be some type of added customization gear system? I definitely think they would go with the customization because the gear system has been a huge success and I don't see why they wouldn't use it moving forward. In MK11, do you think there'll be a customizable gear system because it was a massive success? Personally, I do. Yes, of course. Just answered that in the previous question. And how do you feel about a Quan Jin Premier skin for Green Arrow? I don't think a Quan Jin Premier skin works for Green Arrow. Quan Jin does a lot of different things that Green Arrow doesn't do. That being said, I think Green Arrow could do a lot of things that Quan Jin does do, so maybe a Green Arrow Premier skin for Quan Jin in the future, but I don't think that's going to happen because you'd have to do a ton of animation things that don't really make sense, because Quan Jin's bow and arrow is kind of like a staff as well. Green Arrow's bow is just not like a staff. Definitely think it's something they could pull off, but I don't think it's something that they will because it just doesn't seem very necessary. All right, Nightmares, never again. That's the only time I'm going to answer that many questions from one person, okay? Never again are we allowed to leave this many comments in a row, okay? That's the new rule. You're allowed to ask multiple questions, but 4 at the same time is a little ridiculous. As an imagination exercise, what more DC characters would you suggest as premier skins for Mortal Kombat characters? The only ones I can think of are Red Tornado for Fujin, and Jonah Hex for Aaron Black. I do think Jonah Hex is a good pick for Aaron Black. I didn't actually think about that. If I'm being entirely honest, I don't know a lot about Fujin. My Mortal Kombat experience mostly comes from MKX and a little bit of other Mortal Kombat games throughout my history, so I can't tell you if that's a good pick, but there are plenty of different options you can go with. For example, I think Dr. Fate can do a lot of what Ermac does. I think you can easily make a premier skin for Ermac that's Dr. Fate. Now, you do run into a problem with premier skins in Mortal Kombat, specifically DC characters being premier skins in Mortal Kombat, is that they have to be able to do the X-ray. Now, this comes into a little bit of gray territory where not very many DC characters could do X-rays just because of the type of character that they are. Now, Dr. Fate is not a character that would most likely do an X-ray. Now, they could choose to just ignore something like this. They could just choose to modify it and make it not gruesome. They could also just choose to give them a super like they have in Injustice 2. But I do think the best way to do it would just be to not do characters like Dr. Fate and instead do characters that are more likely to do X-rays. For example, Joker could totally do an X-ray. I mean, just ask Jason Todd. Grodd could do an X-ray, although I don't see Grodd being a premier skin for any character anytime soon. It just depends on how they would end up doing this premier skin interaction with Mortal Kombat characters. We have no idea if they will end up doing this or how they would go about doing it. So it's really hard to entertain this type of imagination or thought experiment because we have no idea what the parameters of that would be. So for me, it's mostly a wait and see thing, but I would really love to see DC characters make their way into Mortal Kombat for sure. Q&A, are you interested in Star Wars? Moderately. I wasn't really a big fan of the first 6 movies. I know a lot of people love Star Wars, so it's going to be, you know, hard to hear this. But for me, I never really found them that exciting. I thought they were like good movies, but nothing that I was like ever super passionate about. The 7th Star Wars movie was pretty awesome. I liked it quite a lot. I never found myself bored during it. I thought it was a very good movie. But again, it's just not something I'm super passionate about. Hopefully the new movies get me pretty excited. I'm interested to see what they do with The Last Jedi. Yeah, it's just not something I would never consider myself like a massive Star Wars fan, but I do enjoy the Star Wars movies. Since Raiden got a DC premier skin, do you think DC characters will get Mortal Kombat premier skins? I know I talked about this a bunch in this video, and I know this has basically been a Mortal Kombat video at this point, so I'm going to take this question as, do I think any of this DC premier skin stuff is going to happen for Mortal Kombat characters? And in short, I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. I think what is more likely is a DC character end up being DLC for a Mortal Kombat game, but it would have to be a very specific character, like again, the Joker I think is probably the best case scenario. And I appreciate you saying that I'm an awesome YouTuber. Do you think the big character reveal for Fighter Pack 3 could be a Marvel character? Love the video, by the way. I really don't think so. I've seen some people in my Discord and in my comment section push this idea that Marvel and DC hate each other. This is not the case. It will never be the case. There are plenty of people who work at Marvel who would love to work at DC and vice versa, but they are healthy competition for each other. But at the end of the day, they are competition, and working together would never serve their best interest. It doesn't make sense, so having a Marvel character show up in Injustice would just be an absolutely stupid business move, especially because they currently have their own fighting game, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Could Thinker be a premier skin for Brainiac? Absolutely not. I know it was really exciting to see the Thinker in the Flash premiere, but I don't think he'll be making his way into Injustice 2. The Thinker is not exactly a combative character in the same way that Brainiac is. If you look at Brainiac's moveset in Injustice 2, those are things that you just can't see the Thinker ever doing because there's no reason for him to do it. That being said, Thinker is a very awesome character. Do you think that we're going to get Nightwing's sticks? I'm going to refer to them as sticks because I suck at pronouncing this other word and I just choose not to embarrass myself. Will be legendary gear or even a new ability for Robin. As awesome as it would be, I don't think they're going to add new abilities to the game at this point unless they're going to absolutely shock me. And the legendary gear is always an upgrade to the accessory. So if we look at all of the accessories throughout the characters, Robin, his accessory is his massive sword. So to give his legendary piece of gear and have it just replace his sword rather than being an upgrade on the sword would be like a huge slap in the face to the people that play Robin currently. It would also just break apart the entire idea of the legendary loot system. So I think what is far more likely is just giving him some type of crazy upgrade to the sword. For example, maybe the chip damage goes up massively or something like that. I have no idea. We're gonna have to wait and see, but I would say that the Nightwing sticks are very unlikely to show up in Injustice 2. I would go with like literally less than 0.001% chance. Alright guys, that's been it for me this video. I want to thank you guys so much for all the recent support. You guys have been killing it with the likes recently, which I super appreciate. I know it seems kind of trivial, but they put a smile on my face at the end of the day, so thank you guys so much for that. My name has been Bilbzy, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.